Gleeman is in studio until the bottom of the hour. This text will introduce us to a subject we'll probably explore in some depth. This is from area code 701. He admits, he says, I may come off as a pullout apologist, but any ownership group is going to have money. The next group, if there ever is one, will still have a lack of media revenue, just like the poll ads. I think if I translate, what he's saying is we can complain about the poll ad approach, but if the model is not improved upon, can we assume that it would be all that different with any other ownership group that comes in? You and I have kind of talked about this before, but to those folks who are in that camp, you say what?
I mean, there is definitely a lot of truth to that, and that is probably why there's going to be a lockout after this season, before next season, or before 2027. You know, baseball has gotten so, I don't know, just opposite ends of the spectrum, where you have the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees, and that's always been sort of true, but it's become so stratified that, you know, you have teams that are spending $75 million on payroll, or even the Twins are at like 105 right now, and you have teams that are spending $350, $400 million. And it is largely driven by what the emailer said, which is local television revenue. There are teams that are making $100 million or more per season, and there are teams like the Twins who, they won't even say, but I'm going to guess they're making under $20 million per season with Twins TV. So that is a huge thing. What I will push back on is the idea that a baseball team owned by a billionaire family has to be run at a profit. And what I would say is, especially in the fourth or fifth decade of ownership, where three generations of pull have owned this thing now, you know, go ahead and sell the team. If you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars and you feel like you're too criticized, like, there will be other people who will take it over. Now, will those people spend more? Maybe, maybe not. But I do reject the premise of this is just a business. It's not just a business. It's a community asset. You need to be the stewards of this thing. And also, you see plenty of teams who are owners who are willing to take a loss because they either are fans of that team, which hopefully the poll ads are at this point, but they realize what it can do for the community, and they can use their billions, not in a villainous way, which is often the case with billionaires recently, but in a way that can make thousands of people in your community happy, and you can then become beloved. Because right now, if you say the name Polad to anybody in Minnesota who's paying attention, they're going to have negative feelings towards that, right? I mean, and maybe very negative feelings. But that doesn't have to be the case. And to lose $30 million a year, $50 million a year, these are small potatoes in the world of billionaires. Now, the Polads are in a situation where they've maybe lost some money on some of their business ventures of late,
right?
And it sort of compounds and everything, and that's a different scenario. But the comeback for, I guess, like defending billionaires in terms of baseball is always, well, they're running it like a business. They didn't become billionaires by losing money. Well, they became billionaires because their grandfather was a billionaire. And they've lost plenty of money on plenty of businesses. I know people who have worked for them and businesses have gone under. They have billions of dollars.
How is Dana?
Right. Hello, Dana. He might be listening to this. Who, by the way, speaks very well of the Polads and Joe Polad. That's a separate issue. But I just reject the idea that they have to run this thing at a yearly profit, because the other reality is, like I said, if you have $5 billion, you can afford to lose money that to a normal person is shocking, but is not shocking. But then beyond that, Carl Polad bought this thing for like $40 million in the 80s. And they didn't get the price they wanted a few months ago, right. 1.7, 1.8 billion. But if they would have, they can at any point they want get $1.5 billion for this thing. And it's sort of like owning, you know, a Picasso or something. You're not going to make money every year owning the Picasso. And in fact, you may lose money if you have to have security for it or something like that. But 50 years later, when it comes time to sell it, you're going to make 1,000% increase or more. And so I think that is how I view ownership of Major League Baseball teams. It's not the year-to-year profit. If you're just trying to run a business and eke out a $5 million profit every year, don't buy a baseball team. It's a luxury item. It's like owning a yacht or a painting.
Or get out of it.
Right, or get out of it.
If you're in it, get out of it. Give somebody else a chance.
There's not a doubt in my mind that deep down, every billionaire who owns a sports team is doing it in part because it feels good to be known for something like that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, they own this or they own that. I'm sure Lori, A-Rod, it's the same thing. They want to be courtside and they want to be viewed in a positive light, but you can't just assume you're going to be viewed in a positive light if you're so worried about year-to-year profits on a thing that is rising in value year after year, decade after decade.
Is it your belief that the poll ads left Falvey, or more that Falvey left the poll ads?
Yeah, this takes a little speculation, although I have been able to talk to some people with the Twins around the league and stuff. Like, my feeling on it is that his job has changed even in the last couple of years. You go back to 2023, they win the division, they break the playoff losing streak. They had a $165 million payroll. Now their payroll is 105. 6 months ago, he does the fire sale. He was either given the green light to do that or even pushed towards that direction by Joe Pohlad. Then Joe Pohlad gets, thrown out of the mix by his own family. His older brother, Tom, takes over. And that happened about 6 weeks ago. And Tom, I've been at his only 3 media sessions so far. And at all 3 of them, he has said, we have to be competitive next year. That's what it's going to take to win back fans. We have to win. And I believe that's my expectation. Well, how does that reality match with the reality of you just did a fire sale? Your payroll has actually shrunk by $30 million compared to last year. And they were horrible at the end.
Give me the payroll numbers. You had a tweet about this within the last week or so, in relation to, if you go back to even Metrodome days, to put it in terms that people can fully understand it.
The way raw payroll, and people are seeing this with just prices of everyday items at this point, year over year, decade, they rise. There's just inflation. So you see $105 million payroll with the Twins and you go, well, I remember when it was $40 million. Well, yeah, but the way I always look at it is compare it to either the average or, something like that of all 30 teams.
Exactly.
And I have a spreadsheet where I update that every year. And right now, the average payroll in Major League Baseball, and there's still quite a few free agents who are going to add to that, but is a shade under $180 million per team. And that includes the Twins, includes the Dodgers at the top end, obviously. The Twins are at 105. So they're at 58%, something like that, or 60%, let's call it. The last time their payroll relative to the league average was lower than it is right now was 2002. Which was Ron Gardenhire's first year taking over for Tom Kelly at the Metrodome 25 years ago, basically.
And got my cell phone in case we make that big trade.
There he is, Gardy. He's going to fire it through the internet. And so I know it angers people because the whole premise of Target Field was to get away from that.
Yep.
They very briefly ran average-ish payrolls. And that's the other thing that I hear from Twins officials all the time. I've heard from poll ads where it's like, you expect us to sign Shohei Ohtani? You expect us to compete? No. Slightly below average payrolls would make people very happy at this point. And I would not criticize them. And they basically did that for 1 year, 2023, and they won the division and they advanced past the first round for the first time in 2 decades. And then they dropped it by $30 million, and now they've dropped it again by $30 million. Now you're at a level where even kind of the peak Gardenhire years at the Metrodome were outspending you relative to the league. They were 80%, sometimes 90% of the league average. And now you're at 60% of the league average, which is a spot where the teams that people mock in this regard, the Marlins and the Pirates and the A's, you're basically neck and neck with them at this point.
I am told constantly since the latest poll ad, is it Tom this time?
Tom Pollard
has gone to the top of the food chain in terms of this team, that, the one thing he's going to be better at is not sending mixed messages. He's going to he's going to speak with a certain clarity and even an understanding of what he has inherited and how much work needs to be done in the public square. I already don't believe it if I ever did. He's already, you might have even been in on this conference call, he's lecturing, musing about all this discussion about payroll. That there's too much, I'm hoping at some point we can get away from that, which tells me he has zero understanding of what he's inherited. Because how can he, with a straight face, just laying out the numbers you just did, he may not like it, but how can he be surprised that people are going to be obsessed with that issue given the way the Twins have treated it?
Well, and particularly because one of his big talking points, because like you said, he's tried to be much more public-facing than Joel Pohlad, and I give him credit for that. He's answered more questions in 6 weeks than Joel Pohlad did in 18 months. And he's talked a big game about both communicating and messaging better to fans. And he's talked a big game about we expect the team to be competitive next year. But to me, that is just cannot match up with the reality of their lack of payroll, their lack of resources that they've given to the front office, which may have led to the guy who's led the front office for 9 years deciding,
sure,
I don't need this anymore. And I don't know how you can stand there and say, yeah, I know we just did a fire sale. Yeah, I know we were the worst team in the American League for the final 2 months of last season. We're expecting to be competitive. How? You've sliced another $30 million off the payroll. The biggest move they've made is a $7 million signing or something. And I wonder, I think Joe Polad's problem, big picture was he was a very big baseball fan who perhaps is not a very good businessman. I think what I worry about with Tom Polad is he's much more experienced at business, and maybe, I don't know enough to say if he was good, bad, indifferent at business, but he's run big things, and they kind of took him away from that to run the Twins because they felt like somebody needed to take over. But what I worry from my initial experiences with him is, does he really kind of get baseball? And I don't mean that, they're going to come to him and say, which backup shortstop do you want to make the opening day roster? What I mean is, when you come out and say, oh, I absolutely expect us to be competitive, even though we were horrendous in August and September, we've shed payroll by another $30 million and we've done no significant additions. The bullpen is a mess. The lineup needs this and that. And it's like, to me, I would never be able to say that and assume that the audience you're saying that to feels like you know what you're talking about. And that's my worry a little bit. I don't know which is better, which is worse. I mean, I don't need a baseball savant running this thing.
I get that, yeah.
And if ultimately he's a better businessman, maybe that does lead to success and higher payrolls. But in the moment, it just seems very odd to me to come in talking about how it's going to be competitive, that's the expectation, et cetera, and then go, you guys haven't done anything. And in fact, you've shrunk the payroll significantly from where it was last year. And so, yeah, that to me doesn't make the greatest first impression. I will give him credit. Like I said, he's answered more questions. He's certainly smoother in terms of how he talks, and maybe a little bit of what he says. But there's a lot of, when I hear it, I go, you keep saying you want to do this and you want to do that, but what does that even mean? And also, you're doing the opposite of that. And so if I were a fan and I'm hearing this, you worry that you're kind of being sold something ahead of time, overpromise, underdeliver. It's like someone saying, you're going to love coming to the new restaurant. We got a new chef. And it's like, well, I'd love to try it. And it's like, well, it's not even open for 6 months, but it's really great. It's probably your favorite restaurant. And you're like, why don't we eat there first before we do that? And so for him to say the team's going to be competitive while they're dropping payroll and they're not making significant moves, I just think my spidey sense goes off there and I go, this is not the way to be, really.
Bonus bucks, Gargi?
Fan wants to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The final keyword of the evening is gold. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword gold.
Heard his voice. He's going to join at the bottom of this hour. I'm being called to task for not getting to some of the meaty stuff we just did until after 5 o'clock. This is from Jeff in Lindstrom, who ends this text with "screw you," as in me, not you.
Okay.
Dan, you disappoint me. It seems you'll do anything to avoid talking about the Twins, even burning Gleeman's first segment with MLS and your beloved NBA. Rocco is out. Falvey is out. Polad family drama. There is much to discuss, but you simply refuse. Unfortunately, baseball fans have no forum in this town.
Yeah, I'm absolutely crushed that we talked Wolves for 10 minutes.
I would say to Jeff, I'm sorry you're mad, and we are getting to a lot of this, but there's a part of me that will stick with what I said early, that if there's less interest in breaking down the Twins culture chasm than there is the Vikings, it's because the team itself, ownership itself, has hastened, I think, this notion that, well, why should I even give a damn on the basis of the number of missteps? Aren't we sort of repeating ourselves here? And are we in a way rewarding them, giving them all this extra time when so little of what they've done, you could argue, merits all that much attention? I just think that's, to me, part of the message I would convey back. I like that he's still in it, but let's face it, with the Twins, it's not so much anger for a lot of people now. We're past the anger stage to, for many, the other A word, apathy, which is kind of, to me, what the owners have earned with almost every move they've made over the course of the last, 18 to 24 months.
Which is a much more dangerous place to be as a team or an owner or whatever. And I think also, even with the ability to speculate what comes next for the Vikings versus the Twins, because they made very similar moves. In the Twins case, it's already an internal promotion. The number 2 guy is now the number 1 guy. There isn't even necessarily going to be some, big sweeping changes. And even with Baldelli, which that happened months ago, his replacement is his former bench coach who had been with the Twins previously. So there isn't even this mystery of, might they bring in some hotshot new guy to run this? It's no, they're just bumping everyone up or bringing someone back, which I'm not saying that can't work well.
Right.
But the other thing is, we're 10 days out from spring training and they've essentially done nothing this offseason and payroll is down. There is some of this in sports, fortunately for owners, where there's just built in, you loved it as a child, you're always going to love it, no matter how bad the ownership gets, how bad the team gets. But the reality is it's just an entertainment product. And I love baseball. I've been covering baseball all my life. But if you don't provide a compelling product to your fans, your customers, you're going to get what you're describing, which is they go, well, check back in 2 years. And that is the most dangerous place to be. And the Twins have done so little to push back against that momentum, negative momentum, over the past 2 or 3 years, or the past 40 years, if you really want to talk about it, that I think it is a different situation than the Vikings situation, because the Vikings situation, I'm not the biggest football fan, but there's at least this notion of they're trying to push towards something. And even though they've had relative success over the course of the last 3 to 5 years, it wasn't enough. With the Twins, it's almost like they're just trying to tread water and just kind of go through the motions until there's a lockout and a new CBA and the television situation that we talked about last segment changes, and then maybe they can sell it on the other end or something like that. To me, those are such vastly different scenarios for being compelling as a product that I think that's where the Twins are. Look, I cover them as best I can.
Yes,
and
you do.
I do, 3 podcasts a week about them, and I write about them, and I'm in the weeds and doing the minutia, but I don't expect everyone to just automatically care about the Twins no matter what the Twins do, because people have other options at this point. Even just locally among sports teams, there's no shortage of teams that are trying to win clearly more than the Twins are at this point.
You've hit it. To me, the Vikings are about what they can try to do. The Wolves are about what they can try to do. The Wild right now are about what they can try to do. The Twins are about telling us what they can't do. Right. And the difference is everything. And it doesn't mean the ones on the other end are always going to make the right move, but there's a sense of active aggressiveness of, we're trying to get someplace, and we're not going to tell you why we can't do this and can't do that. We're going to find some way to keep trying to get there aggressively. And what's the Twins' mantra? Really can't do that. Well, we'll get back to us on that. We got to refigure this while they figure out the new model, all that sort of thing. And that's, if you're a fan to me, that's everything. And that's why, for me, it's hard to want to reward them with endless Twins talk. I was delighted when Guardsy said you were going to come in, because the timing was perfect, because I did want to get to it. Yeah. But to me, that's what the Twins should be facing is, well, I don't know, why bother? Like you said, maybe I'll come back, but I'm going to wait a couple years to see if there's any signal that it's going to be less about you telling me, no, can't get that done. No, that'd be nice, but realistically, that's just not what we're capable of messing with.
Well, and just from the nuts and bolts offseason perspective, it's difficult at some point to treat waiver claims and minor league signings and designated for assignments.
As opposed to Quinn Hughes and the Greek Freak. And
it's difficult to treat those as if they're something worth talking and writing about in full when they're not. I mean, look, I write about them as if they're something, but it's just they're in such a different situation. It feels to me like the other teams in town, and I mean, clearly this is true of the Lynx, obviously, like pretty much every other team in town, Loons, we were just talking about, there's a bar, and it may not be the highest bar, but there's at least a feeling that they're trying to reach it, and when they don't reach it, they're trying to reevaluate how can we reach it. And with the Twins, the feeling too often for fans, I think, is the bar is extremely low, and often they don't even seem that interested in reaching the extremely low bar. It's more like, it's almost like, can we just go through life unnoticed as this team and just sort of,
But I still want you to believe in us.
Right.
As you say, that even the newest poll ad, it's we got to believe, you got to understand.
It is very strange. And I recognize that the financial picture environment of baseball is much different than other sports. There's no salary
No question.
cap. The revenue sharing is different. The Twins are undoubtedly at a disadvantage relative to big market teams that just doesn't exist at the same level in NBA, NFL, NHL, et cetera, et cetera. But what their reaction seems to be to that is just to shrink back completely and sort of make it a foregone conclusion that your fans are going to be checked out, that you're going to be frustrated, not just with the Twins, but with baseball as a whole, because you're going to be 25th in payroll, and the teams surrounding you on the list are going to be ones that have generational reputations for not trying, basically.
It was it 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, Guardsy, we did the show from the Target Center cage. Wolves played the Bulls. And as we're doing the show, who do we see basically walking arm in arm through the Target Center Skyway is the new manager, and Derek Falvey, smiling at us, waving the whole bit. So do we have any inside knowledge, any sort of inside look about how the new manager feels? I know he's going to say all the right things, but how he feels about already losing, presumably the guy who hired him, unless you tell me actually he didn't hire him.
Definitely the guy. They had a good relationship.
That's what I
when
thought.
He was the bench coach. They're very friendly.
Yes.
I mean, this tells you that this was not part of the plan. Obviously, you don't let Falvey hire the new manager, go through 95% of the offseason, and then go, oh, we're mutually parting ways. I think the tricky thing is Falvey is a good soldier. He has always been a good soldier. And even until the very end, we did an exit Zoom with him, and he said and did all the right things to make it as plausible as possible that this was truly a mutual breakup. But as anybody who's broken up with anybody knows, there's somebody who's 51% at least and somebody who's 49% at least. And my speculation is that Falvey was the one who just kind of got pushed to a breaking point and was just like, you know what, I don't need this. And talking to people around the league who were just shocked by it, my phone was lighting up from people in front offices being like, what is going on? There's a real sense that whenever his contract or his non-compete is up with the Twins, he can basically pick an assistant GM job. And there's a real sense that the next hiring cycle, he has a real shot of being the number one guy again with another team. And he said as much that this is not the end of my baseball. I mean, he's in his 40s. Like he was not, this is not a guy who was burnt out overall. This is a guy who became burnt out because of the shrinking resources and expectations not changing and that sort of thing.
And not a guy above criticism in terms of some of the moves they made either, but that's a completely different issue. We're very late because Luigi is going to get bitter if I don't wrap this up soon. I think I might have won Jeff and Lindstrom back.
Ooh, thank God.
I understand he writes, and don't disagree, Dan, the poll ads have earned fan apathy in spades. Thank you for addressing my frustration. So I feel good about maybe I bring him back. Lastly, this is from, do you have any kind of working relationship with Dan Winnesota?
No, I know of him from Twitter.
Yeah, sports historian of the Bumper to Bumper show.
Yes.
He's carved out a great niche, as we say in the business.
He'll find like your column from like 30 years ago
that I don't even remember writing.
I love it.
And some of those I wish he hadn't found because there's the ones where I go, did I write that?
Yeah.
Here's what he writes.
Okay.
Gleeman is the most authentic and genuine Twins writer in town.
Okay.
That's pretty nice. That's nice. That's high praise.
Yeah, I guess I'm glad I didn't admit to bribing him to say that beforehand.
That's pretty good. That's not bad at all. That's pretty good.
The check is in the mail.
Well, yeah.
Unfortunately, I need to know your real identity to send the check.
I think that's his real name.
Dan
That's a real Dan Winnesota. I think he changed it legally. Yeah,
like
I'm pretty sure. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. You're on your way to spring training in 10 days, did you say?
Yep, 10 days.
10 days? And you're going down how long?
like 2 weeks.
Unless they throw you out sooner.
Well, that's always a possibility.
I was going to say,
especially
with you,
if anybody was listening to this, they may not even let me on the Delta flight.
Safe travels. Good to see you as always.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Great stuff from Aaron Gleeman. Let's break and talk hockey with Lou Nanne, who has seen the new Netflix Miracle documentary. We'll get his views on that and many other things.
Well, she sneaks around the world from here to Carolina. She's a sticky finger filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is Lou?
Well, he is with us right now, brought to you by, as usual, our good friends at Kemp's. If you have questions, and some of you already have, toss them into the mix. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686. Guardsy, look at the screen right now. ESPN Super Bowl week.
Is that our new QB?
The Vikings' new quarterback with a really hip, with it and wow set of sunglasses.
Yeah, and hair.
Being interviewed by, which ESPN guy is that?
That's Peter Schrager.
That's Peter Schrager, who's isn't he a big Vikings guy?
He's a big KOC guy.
KOC guy, maybe that's what it is.
He loves KOC. Who doesn't?
Luigi, how are you, sir?
Very good, although I'm a little cold.
What are you down to? 40? I'm going to say where you are, it's back up to about 62 degrees, but that's cold.
67.
67.
But the wind is really howling.
You got wind chill, in Florida?
I got wind chill.
Wind chill, a howling wind chill, yeah. It's unbelievable is what it is. Hey, I had a great conversation, as we often do, with Billy Guerin yesterday. And I mentioned to him that Russo had, via Twitter, said that he was demanding that Guerin make as required viewing to every member of the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team the new Netflix documentary on the miracle of Lake Placid. And in classic Bill Guerin fashion, he said, yes, I know. We're putting it on I'm putting it on the list, Russo. Calm down. I'm putting it on the list, as only Guerin could say. He reminded me, I forgot, he was coached by Herbie. And because we're talking about, it's always, I love talking about Herbie. You know that. We've done that so many times over the years. So you've watched the new doc. Is there any good nugget Herbie related that struck you? Or what did you, as a guy who knows all of the story, lived it, what stood out to you about this new documentary?
Well, first of all, it's the best thing I've seen about the Olympic team. This was so well done. And the reason why it was so well done is because you got the players' feelings. The way the players were able to talk about their feelings at the time, what they recalled and what they were going through, and what an experience it was. It was just, it brought you right back to the moment. And things like, that I didn't know, about Jim Craig and his mother dying during that time and had passed away, and his father lost his job. Things that personal things that didn't come up in the other films that I thought were really important. And I think the fact that Herb, they didn't dwell on the beating he took 10-3 when after the game. I know because I was down with him talking to him about it, and he was very upset. And I almost got the impression that he was really upset the way Jim played goal. And I thought, would he ever come back with Janicic? I didn't ask him that.
Sure.
But I was thinking about it. That was something in my mind because it was such a thrashing, and when you look at the film, there was no doubt in his mind who he wanted, and it was, as we all know, a great move because Jimmy was terrific during the whole playoff. But I was just, really happy to see the emotions that the guys recalled going through this. And Kenny Morrow, and I know Kenny pretty well, and I didn't know that, his father passed away. before that, and all the relationships
Sure.
that you're talking about. And the most important, I didn't know about Eruzione's uncle. When he had to borrow $70 to go to a hockey school, and he went to pay his uncle back, and his uncle says, "No, you work for what you get," and it was a great feeling that he carried with him. And as we saw in the documentary, what he was thinking about when the game was over with his uncle. So it was just a different type of film that drew in so many other things that were never talked about.
That's great.
That I thought were really important.
I am looking forward to it then. It's definitely on my list. Tom from Savage asks, can you ask Sweet Lou if it's true Herbie didn't swear like they said in the Netflix documentary? I always assumed it was every other word, no disrespect.
Well, he probably didn't swear in the locker room. Herbie swore. I mean, we rode down to Rochester enough when we were playing down there together. I heard him swear a lot.
Yeah.
He heard me swear a lot.
Right,
so
yeah.
That wasn't anything new, but it's probably just the discipline he had and didn't ever want to, let it. Maybe he thought in his mind that if he swore to show that he was maybe losing it or losing discipline or something. But at the end, in that finish game, he couldn't help it. But he was capable of a word or two.
Well, one of the things that Guerin said yesterday was, I think this was when the first year, he says first year when he coached him, was that he'd use big words that a lot of the players weren't familiar with. And I think he talked about a speech that he gave the players, and the whole theme was about synergy. And he kept using, according to Billy, the word synergy. And the way Guerin described, we're all looking at each other. This is a long time ago. He walks out of the locker room and he's like, does anybody know what does that mean? What's synergy? And they have no idea what the hell he's talking about, which is, I thought, pretty funny.
Well, one thing he did, and he did this forever. Herbie was, and it was really great to see Danny and Kelly as children, that they were able to find the box of notes that he kept, of speeches
Tremendous.
he gave in between periods, all the way along. I think that's a treasure trove.
No question.
And he was like that. I mean, he loved to send notes rather than talk. I mean, we didn't have cell phones where it's so easy to do now. But you would think at times he'd pick up the phone and call more, and he'd send you a letter. And
I love that.
When we had the North Stars, remember I hired him as coach, and then I resigned that year, and Gordon Gund said, "Well, Louis, I want you to give everybody letters that they're all let go, the whole staff, including Herbie. And, we should have the new general manager pick them." And I said, "That's right. I don't think I should be picking his people. And, I'm the president overlooking the operation, not picking the staff." And Herbie got let go, and along with everybody else. And Farrar could have hired him back or not hired him back. He decided to go with Pierre Paget.
Ah, yes.
And, there was a lot of uproar about that, which is understandable, and I bugged Charlie Walters, the close friend, but Charlie was like Gary Smith, and he led the way, as if I had fired Herbie, which I wouldn't do.
Right.
But and so Herbie was really upset with me. He didn't call me or say anything, and he didn't say anything, so I didn't talk to Herbie for almost a year.
Wow. Then
when he knew the real story and everything, he sent me a letter. He didn't pick up the phone to call me.
Yeah.
Again, he sent me a letter to apologize and to tell me, "No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, blah blah blah," and I blamed you for it. But that's just the way he was. Everything, it was almost like he'd rather write you his thoughts than tell you his thoughts.
But you know what I love about
it? Was so funny because in between periods, he'd rather tell you his thoughts than write you his thoughts.
You know what I love about that, though? Again, if you think of that in today's context, I mean, nobody writes letters to anybody anymore. I mean, and the idea that, I mean, that can be a really effective form of communication that's pretty much lost. And you can
Yeah,
even argue back
is.
then there weren't that many people doing it. And it's just fascinating to hear that was a lot of time his preferred way of communicating, right? It's the long form letter. It's underrated, man.
Yeah, it is. And what I found out, even in that film, like Jim Craig wrote a letter to his mother every day. And I'm not during the series, but before,
right.
When he was at school or something. It reminded, when I was in college, I wrote my mother every week, my mother and father. But my mother wrote me every day. And so when I'm thinking about these letters and her rewriting these letters, I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, nobody writes letters anymore. And of course now we got email, and nobody will write a letter. But that was so important, and that's why it was so good that Danny and Kelly kept all those notes.
No question.
And that all those things that were said, because that's one way to keep them. I mean, I'm sure you could do it with emails now, but it's a nice way to get people's thoughts and emotions that just carry over through ever.
That's a treasure trove of stuff, as you said. And again, there's emails that can go on for, but when it's handwritten, right? That in of itself it feels so much more personal and authentic. The term we've talked, you and I, many times over the years about Herbie. I could talk about him forever because we use that term original, an American original, but he's it, man. That's just I don't know how he got made, how he got wired the way he did, but there's just nobody. There will never be anybody quite like him.
No, that's right. And the funny part was the way his personality changed from when he was a player and an insurance salesman to when he became coach. It just all of a sudden there was like a wall went up, and he was extremely serious about everything. His letting himself go like he did before just didn't exist anymore.
Right.
I mean, he became a very serious, determined, focused guy, and he never lost that.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't the story? Didn't he have? I think we've talked about this before. He had frozen pipes at home or something, and decided to try to warm them up with a blowtorch or something, and then set the house on fire or something. Didn't he? He
calls me this one night, and I was coming in from out of town, and he's, I got a problem. I said, what happened? He and Patty lived on Turtle Lake there in St. Paul, and he had a house there, and it was really cold.
Yep.
Really, and he took a blowtorch and set the house on fire and burnt the house down.
You can't make it up. You just can't. That's so
I
him.
said, there's only so many things you can do.
So let me ask you, I asked Bill Guerin this question. He's very excited about, obviously, being the guy, the architect of the U.S. team. And he said, I'm going to enjoy all of it. And I know there's a million people already second-guessing a lot of the personnel moves we made. I don't care. I did what I did. I'm going to stand by that, whether we win the gold or it does not work out. And I said, can you enjoy it as it's taking place, though? Because it is such a burden. There's so much responsibility. He claims he's going to be able to enjoy all of it. Is that even possible, you think?
Yeah, he will enjoy all of it. And I mean, there could be some times when he's going to be very upset about it, but it's such an experience. And you have to remember when the one time he played for Herbie, and it was in Salt Lake City. I was there. I remember. And that's when the Canadians implanted a golden or a silver dollar or whatever on the ice for good luck. Gretzky was on that team. And the United States team really played well. Really, they could have won it. And Canada finally came to the top of their game in the game that where they beat the U.S. But the U.S. played hard. Herbie had them playing really well. I don't think they had as much talent as the Canadian team, but they were close, and they were close enough that they almost won that game. And I'm sure Billy's thinking about, even though they didn't win the goal that time, what an experience it was, and how much he loved it, and that this is going to be the same way. And as far as being second guessed, that happens every day in his job with the Wild.
That's
Everybody
true. Yeah.
that sees the team is second guessing who he picks, who he drafts, who he trades, who's in the lineup, etc. So that's something you're used to as a general manager. But the excitement and the atmosphere of playing in the Olympics is completely unique. And it's something that if you are a part of it, unless something illegal happens or something, there's no way you can have a feeling that you wish you were never there.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
no way possible. It's something, whether you're first or last, you're going to really be happy that you're there.
There's
Because it's a feeling that you can't get from anything else. When you're representing
right.
the United States in the Olympics like that, you can't get that feeling any other place.
I would submit to you, you're speaking of it from experience and participating and so forth, but I would submit to you the same applies to covering it. And I think, and I've said this before, the Winter Olympics, to me, because of the esoteric nature of many of the sports, obviously hockey is not esoteric, but you know what I'm talking about. A lot of sports that we don't really spend much time on the rest of the year, the scenery, the backdrop, the winter backdrop, that whole sense of that feel that you get in the towns that they're built in. And by the way, sometimes they're small towns, sometimes they're bigger. I don't think anything touches it. The whole Olympic vibe, the whole Winter Olympic vibe, I think is incredibly distinctive.
It is really distinctive, and it's unfortunate this time. It happens sometimes where the hockey and speed skating events are farther away, like from Cortina.
That's true.
We had a little ways in Calgary when we were in Calgary downtown, and you'd have to go up to the mountain to watch them there. Same thing in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, but not as far as Cortina. Cortina is a little farther away from Milan than where we had the skiing in Calgary and Vancouver. And when I was in Grenoble, it was the best because everything was right there. When I played in Grenoble, our rink was right downtown. Where we were housed was right downtown.
Yep.
And the hills were like 10, 15 minutes away.
It's perfect. Well, that's a little bit, I think, what Sarajevo was like. I mean, I can remember some of the medal ceremony stuff right in the main square there. The whole feel of it is really, really, it's memorable. You just don't forget it.
Yeah, and Sarajevo, not only that, I mean, Sarajevo, it snowed every day. That's
right.
Drove me nuts. Every day it snowed. It was just amazing. It never seemed to stop. Like Salt Lake City was good too. Salt Lake City, you had Park Valley and Deer Valley where the skiing was. Only about 35 minutes from the rink downtown in Salt Lake where the games were played there.
We've got, as you know, the Wild have one game left before the break. So I have to believe that the feel is good, right, going into this lengthy break here regarding the team's positioning, the way they're playing, and even Guerin, he confirmed this, that for him, it's a lot more motivating to think big about making another move if the existing group has done as well as this group has done. That it's much easier than the alternative, which is, well, can you add a player that might energize things? They're already in such a good position. He says, absolutely, it makes it more likely that, he's going to try to do everything he can to perhaps add one more piece. If, as he says, to use his cliche, the price is right.
Oh, there's no doubt he's going to do that, or at least attempt to do that. But like you said, the price has got to be right, and that's where I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah,
I hope they have enough to pay because not that he was going to get Panarin, but I wouldn't expect Panarin to even be around till after the Olympics. Although they have a trading moratorium coming in right now, so Panarin could be traded in the next 2 days, or he wouldn't be traded until after. But they'd want to send him in more, I would think, and they're willing to pay the price if the price be a cost that something they'd be far off in the future would be the the biggest part of the price. Like draft choices 3 years down the line or something. That's where they got a little bit of a problem. But
Right.
I hope that they can find something, or somebody wants to come here and you know, is in a position where he could be a free agent at the end of the year and won't go anywhere else. So the seller would have to take less, and that might help. But I really think he'll try and do something. And the only thing they got to go through right now, and you got so many players playing in there, the one thing you got to do is hope they all play well, but they all come back healthy.
Yeah, that's the key. You're 100%
That's
right.
the key in this whole thing right now, because somebody's going to get hurt from some teams. There's going to be injuries there.
Tim from Deep Haven writes, my high school hockey coach was Jack, is it pronounced Blatherwick, who was a friend of Herbie's, and I believe, he writes, was the guy who developed the strength and conditioning program for the 80 Olympic team. Would love to hear Louie's thoughts on Cardiac Jack. That's Tim from Deep Haven.
He is one of the unsung heroes of that 80 Olympic team. And I want to tell you, Herb took him, he started with him at the university when Herbie's coaching in the university there. Cardiac Jack, I call him that too. He was hired by Herbie to condition the players. And he was ahead of his time. He really was terrific at what he did. And he was so good at it that Herb used him with the Olympic team too. And that's why remember we've talked about this so many times. When I said the key to that Olympic team was that they were in the best condition.
Mm-hmm.
They were the best conditioned team I've seen besides the Soviets. That was the key to them, and that was Herbie's focus, was to get this team to be as well conditioned as the Russians, so they couldn't have more stamina than them at the end. And Cardiac Jack, you know, was the guy with the program, and Herb used them beautifully. And that team was unbelievably conditioned, and that's why one of the big reasons why they won.
There's not going to be any FOMO for you if you're not, since you said you're not making this trip.
No, I'm going to watch it on TV and enjoy it. I'll get a little nostalgic and wish I was there as they get in the medal rounds. And I know how exciting it's going to be. Somebody's going to get upset. One of the big teams is going to get upset. It always happens. One of these teams come through, like Latvia when they beat Canada before, and you never know who it's going to be. But I just want to see the U.S. sail through. I want to see a USA-Canada final with the U.S. winning, and that would be just phenomenal, because that game would be outstanding. Canada's going to be really tough to beat, but I think if anybody can do it, it could be the USA. They've got a real good team, and it's probably going to come down to goaltending again, like it did the Four Nations tournament.
We will chat next week. Great analysis as usual, my friend. We'll talk then.
Look forward to it. Take care.
Thank you, Luigi. Lou Nanne, brought to you by our good friends, his good friends at Kemp's. We've got a half hour yet to go in today's broadcast, and an interesting bit of informed speculation regarding the Minnesota Timberwolves and whether, to a certain extent, as we approach the Thursday trade deadline, the Wolves are on the clock, according to an important member of this team. We'll explain exactly what we're talking about next here in the Fan. Linwood Township guy checks in with this. I can't listen till later, but if it wasn't spoken of earlier by you and your show, let's have it on record that Mike Conley appears to be one of the league's most valuable veterans and professionals ever. What a class act. I hope I'm speaking for many, and we wish him well. A pro's pro. Thank you. From Linwood Township guy, formerly South Chicago guy. Here. Formerly South Chicago guy. On this program, we couldn't agree more, and in fact, we did salute Mike Conley earlier in the program. If you're just joining and have not been paying attention, Mike Conley has been traded, part of a three-way deal to the Chicago Bulls. And for now, basically, in the deal, all the Wolves really got was the possibility of swapping number ones in effect. No players are involved. The assumption is, well, here's what we know. We know that if the Wolves do nothing else, they will have saved, their luxury tax bill would go from $24 million to $3.8 million, a considerable savings. They would also then be under the first apron. The hope, the assumption is, part of the reason they made this move was to give them greater options in terms of aggregating salaries to make one of these complicated deals that, by the way, they were trying to make a year ago at this time to acquire Kevin Durant and frankly ran out of time. And now, did they do this early enough to give themselves the greatest flexibility to get in the Giannis sweepstakes or to get in some other sweepstakes? But the question on the table, as offered up earlier today by the ESPN crew, is who the Wolves could have acquired as part of this deal. And according to, well, you're here from, this is Windhorst from ESPN. Let's hear what he has to say about sort of the meaning of what the Wolves did today and what he views as the rather greater than dispassionate interest of a Minnesota Timberwolves named Anthony Edwards. Let's listen to Windhorst.
Say two things. One, I want to see what Minnesota does guard-wise. Assuming they don't get Giannis, they could have gotten Kobe White in this trade, and they need help at the guard position. So I want to watch what Minnesota does between now and Thursday, and I'm sure Ann Edwards does too. Secondly, Mike Conley going to Chicago. This is a potential buyout situation. I'm not sure what Conley, I don't think Conley can play a big role in the team, but this is a guy every team in the league would want. He could get bought out in a contender if they fit the criterion, which is another story for another day. Mike Conley could join a contender in the next couple of weeks.
I have just like one thought. How urgent are the Minnesota Timberwolves right now? Because they have Anthony Edwards, 24.
Well, they're trying to get Giannis.
You know,
I mean, that's pretty
know
urgent.
That. We know that. But, like, if that does, if that
like,
falls
what's plan
short,
B?
there are options right now.
If you're, I don't want to overreact on Tuesday when the deadline is Thursday, but if you come out of this week and Minnesota's move is just to save money, they're going to have to answer to Ant on that. But it's just Tuesday, okay. So let's just wait.
Shot across the bow from your guy, Windhorst. Windy, as you call him.
Absolutely.
And he's not wrong. I mean, you can make the argument that this is a team that certainly has not been shy about spending. But you could also say that if at the end of the day, all they did before the deadline is save money, I don't think that's going to be very well received. I'm not talking about they're on the Twins level. We're grading on a completely different curve. But I do think that'll be painful, especially if Windhorst is right that the gamble in making the trade they did now was that they could have acquired a guard, I think a helpful guard. I think Kobe White would have helped this team, absolutely helped this team try to maximize on what they have. And by the way, at a much lower cost, obviously, than it's going to take to get Giannis here. So it is going to be a couple of interesting days. The trade deadline is less than 48 hours from now. It's 2 p.m. Central on Thursday, and we'll be tracking it very, very closely. But that's the sticky wicket, I think, if you are the president of basketball operations for this team. You're playing a dangerous game where it sounds like you're trying to keep your options open to get a bigger fish than Kobe White. But what if you don't get any fish? Or you end up with a little minnow because you can't even get, at this point, the way you've done these deals, somebody as accomplished as Kobe White is. So I think Conley deserves the trust that, stick with me. But the X factor is there another move? If Giannis is just ungettable, is there another pretty good-sized move that represents what Kobe White does? That's the part I don't know that we completely understand. We all assume there should be greater flexibility from a payroll standpoint, but You can make the argument with Anthony Edwards probably coming into his own like he's never done before, having his best half season, even if occasionally I, too, get frustrated by what we saw again last night, which was a lack of attention to the defensive end that has the head coach at his wit's end again, doing the old ask them, it's up to them, which also we've said is dangerous territory. You feel like the last thing you want to do now is just making about saving money because you've been to the conference finals twice and it feels urgent now, right? That you got to give your best chance to make another run and maybe even in a Western Conference that perhaps is more wide open than we thought to take that next step. And that means being aggressive. That means adding to the mix, not just, we'll wait it out until this offseason. So the next 48 hours or so or a little less, I think are going to be fascinating to see.
Does Kobe White do much for you?
Kobe White does more for me than I think he does for you.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I just don't like the style of flopping.
No,
you know that. I'd have to get over that. I'd also, by the way, have to get over that if they somehow bring James Harden in, which is another
That's also true, yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it, Kobe White is still probably available outside of this deal.
Well, that's the question. Is he? Yeah.
Like if they swing,
right?
Because I've seen also because his contract's expiring,
that's
so
true.
He's not going to have to be some crazy package. I like that package to go get Kobe White because his contract's done after this season, so he would probably be a rental. Because I've seen even today that the market for him is allegedly teams are offering a couple of second-round picks essentially, and the Bulls are trying to hold out for more. Theoretically, to answer to the sound we just played, what's the backup plan if you don't pull off the Giannis move? That could still be a backup plan, which would also still be helpful, and you would keep the core of the team intact.
No question. That's what we're saying.
So we'll see.
That's what I guess. Does he know something about the Kobe White part that now it would be harder to get him than before? I don't know. In theory, you'd think they still could, but I don't know. The issue, I think, is if you have to go to a fallback move, how far back are you falling back? Are you going 2 levels down from Giannis or 1 level down from Giannis? I think that's in fact, the guard? Who's the guard? He just came back from injury and killed us last night. Is it Ty Jerome?
Okay.
I think from Memphis. He's another guy. You could argue it would be kind of intriguing here if he's healthy now, if he's going to stay healthy. Some of the people who can help don't have to be massive names, I don't think. But I firmly believe you have to get something, and I think you have to trust enough that he knows it, that Conley knows that now, especially that they have traded Mike Conley, that what are your bench options at this point? I refuse to believe they're just going to throw Dillingham into the deep end. Maybe they are out of desperation.
I doubt it.
But I doubt it at this point. So that tells me he knows he's got to have a plan B or a plan C. The hard part is if you're putting all your ducks in a row to make the big move, does it affect your ability to go back to a different plan? I have absolutely no idea. Alan from Afton writes, so now the curse of being in the bumper-to-bumper team has jumped from the Vikings to the Wolves. Someone should warn Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild. It hasn't affected, Zimmer got fired, but that was long after. He hadn't been on our show for years.
No, and Guerin is not a regular. Guerin is a semi-regular.
You're right. That's true.
The people we're talking about are the ones that are committed to a weekly or semi-weekly
you're right.
bit with us that somehow end up elsewhere.
Yeah, well.
Cam Bynum, Patrick Peterson.
I'll maintain what I said before. I will be far more surprised if the Wolves don't do something big to very big. I consider Giannis very big. Big to very big before Thursday at 2:00 than I will that they're going to just stay the course and try to figure this thing out with what they have. I will be fairly shocked if they do that because I think you could even argue, you could say, okay, it's a salary dump on Conley and trying to save money, but the president of basketball operations knows how much Finchie still values Conley.
I'm sure Finchie's devastated today.
To do it, I think that's Conley's way of saying, God bless you for what you've meant to us. We'll never forget it. You are as professional as everybody says, but I got to deal with the here and now. And that means we're going to have to probably go another direction. And in effect, he's taking the Conley option away. Tim Conley is taking the Mike Conley option away from the head coach, which tells me he knows he's got to do something else, even if it's not as big as Giannis.
I know we have to pause, but what's your read on the James Harden steam or speculation that apparently they're kicking the tires on that as well?
We talked about this about 3 weeks ago, and I surprised myself with my willingness, even though isn't he like 6 years older than Giannis?
He's old.
He's 37, I think. I'm just going to tell you, when I watch him now, I like him as a player now more than I ever did when the world revolved around him. He's averaging 25 and 8, and you know what else he's doing? He's playing every night. Every night. He has. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I don't think he's missed much time at all. It's outlandish.
Yeah.
It's short term.
Yeah.
And he wants 2 more years at $80 million.
You can't do that, I don't think.
So I don't know what you do there, but I am not as opposed to it as people would have assumed I would have been on the basis of me hammering Harden, especially for some of his, shall we say, postseason collapse.
That's what worries me, is who's your second option in the postseason? Randall is, I guess. I mean, could he be the third option? Would he accept that?
He has to a certain...
Is he coming off the bench because Dante's starting?
I think Dante doesn't start at that point.
Okay.
Just saying.
Well, that...
But would that be the worst thing? Then you got a better you got scoring off the bench that you need.
But I kind of like the more reliable James Harden scoring off the bench.
Yeah, you could make that argument.
So there's a lot. I'm not as opposed to it either, which is
the thing again.
Frightening to me.
Here's the thing again. You know, not all these moves necessarily will work out, but they're big. They're ambitious.
It's fun.
It's ambitious. It's an ambitious franchise. The Wild represents an ambitious franchise. The Vikings, for all their mistakes, they're ambitious. They want to think big.
Got my cell phone in case we make that big trade.
And then we got that. And then we got...
it's not good baseball.
That.
Presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
How about the love Dan Minnesota gave our 4:30 in-studio guest, Aaron Gleeman, the most authentic and genuine Twins writer in town?
Yes, I will say, though, he loves the messenger, but Minnesota loves the message. He is about as anti-Pohlad as they get.
Now, that's a good point. That might have had more to do with it in Dan Minnesota's case, but it's true. Conley has testicular fortitude. Quinn Hughes is a dude. Don't be rude. Wolves in 5.
Kind of limped to the finish with the rude. That was kind of a bailout, but the first two were good.
Finchie was on with PA this morning talking about how Mike Conley means and how he planned to continue playing him.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of a shock it was to him.
Maybe that was the final straw. Tim Conley was listening on iHeartRadio.
It might have been, yeah.
Said, I got to get this guy out of here.
Outstanding contributions from Gleeman. Outstanding contributions from Kevin Seifert. Louie was great at 5:30, and some good A-section fodder with a very fired up, and I think we've motivated him, Paul Bloom.
That was so good.
Of Fox 9. How good is that?
Well, Seifert said, you going to tell him about Ragoose? And I said, I'm not going to get him going. And then you went right in on it. I have noticed he's gotten some airtime.
Oh, it's so good.
I love it.
We're back tomorrow. Kessler, among our guests. We're working on a couple of other special ones as well. Mace, do we bring him back? We'll see. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow beginning at 3.
Are you nuts?
Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the great time. We love you, Dan.